I have a whole spread of different examples of the 100% corn whiskey. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there's another one over there, 7 different versions of the same stuff. And I'm hoping by tasting through them together with you, we're going to sort of derive some interesting things about both the corn whiskey itself, but also the different techniques that have been used throughout the different examples. How's it going, chasers? I hope you're having a kick-ass week. I'm Jesse, this is Still It, and all of this is the 100% corn whiskey, like bourbon, I guess you'd call it, that was made almost 2 months ago now. So I thought it was a good point in time to check in on this, because there is so freaking much going on here in terms of different things that we can compare to each other. Let me give you a really quick rundown on what this wash was. It's pretty damn simple. It was 100% corn. Bottled enzymes, 100% corn, full stop. These two are exactly the same. Same wash, same yeast, AM1 from Angel. Literally the same distillation. They were just split and put into 2 different vessels. This one obviously is a badmo barrel. This one is obviously aging in glass with some special oak that I've got going on over here. This one here is exactly the same stuff, but fermented with English yeast. And then over here, we have, what is this one? Oh, this is the AG2. Angel's kind of like more American corn whiskey yeast specifically. And then I have the forced aged versions sitting behind the desk here as well. A buttload of different samples. So let's start with this one here, which I think is the closest to being a, like, I want to say production whiskey. That's ridiculous, but I don't know, the most complete thing that I've got on the table right now, the baseline. Let's call it the baseline. The first thing I know is that it is really cornbready. It's big, it's chewy, it's oily, it's in your face. It's literally a little bit like cornbread, which is borderline too much for me. I like these kinds of flavors more. I like pushing the boundaries in terms of having too much flavor, that it's like almost like being over seasoned for, or over peppered or over spiced, too much chili, or, too much acidity in a standard food, if you're talking about, being chefy. It has an awesome bourbon-like sweetness up front. It is starting to get just a touch of, I don't actually know if it is like somewhere between barrel tannin and barrel spice on the end of it, or if it is still the slightly new alcohol thing. It's sort of sitting in between and I can't quite tell. This is shaping up to be, I think, probably the best whiskey I've ever made, which is cool. Like, that makes me feel good. As someone who is chasing the craft, it feels like I'm progressing. If I wasn't making steps and thinking, wow, this actually has more potential than other things I've made, it would make me feel like I'm going backwards, right? So exactly the same thing here, but in the barrel. The first thing to note is that this wood is darker both in toast and char than the wood I've used in here. And you can kind of see that. It's going to be real hard for you to see it from back there. This is straw going on gold. This is gold going on darker, like almost towards this kind of color, but not as dense. You get those aromas from it. There's more roast, there's more toast in the oak. It's almost to the roasted almond stage, but not quite. It's back from that a little bit. It has the same big chewy cornbread-esque thing going on. They also have a really interesting fruitiness and esteriness coming through from the yeast that is more Scotch-like than corn whiskey-like. And that's why I like this yeast. I like kind of splitting the difference between, say, bourbon and Scotch, and sort of going on the in-between there. The esters, if I had to pick, it's more orchard fruity. It's like fruit and cream. I don't know. I like those aspects in this whiskey. Now this tastes a lot younger than this. Neither of them have aged at, a whole lot at all at this point in time. But this one has more wood presence in it, and that wood presence in a new American oak whiskey, you want it, right? Like, that's why I put new American oak in this. That has more, so it's coming across like it's it's just presenting as more heavily oaked, which makes sense. There's a buttload of oak in this in terms of surface area compared to that. But that's the beauty of a barrel like this, right? I can probably age this for 3 years and not have to worry about it. So really the difference between the two is the oak. Now, what I want to do is taste this one here, which is the one that I did like a force age to check this sort of thing really quickly when I was making the video. I didn't have time, you know, like I'd love to be able to make videos 6 months ahead of time. I'm just not at that point yet. Those esters have increased in intensity and in complexity compared to both of these. That's actually getting pretty damn good. Wow. There is something too, not the hot colds, I've gone off those, but just straight up temperature for like 24 to 48 hours. It really does just bring out an interesting complexity. It makes the wood do more. It seems like it breaks the wood down and starts to release the more acidic side of things in the wood. And in this, it is starting to go towards berries. The biggest thing I can say is that I feel like these 3 different techniques of aging are meaningful. They're all doing exactly what I would expect. And in some ways that's disappointing because it doesn't challenge me. It doesn't make me stop and rethink what I expect to happen, or it doesn't challenge me and make me reconsider my suspicions, I'm avoiding trying to use the word belief. It doesn't challenge my beliefs of what I think these techniques do. They're doing exactly what I would expect them to. This has given it age in a weird way. It has accelerated the chemical reactions as well as the oaky actions, but it was a darker wood as well. This one's tracking the same as most of my jar-aged whiskey tracks, but the wood that I'm using, I think, is the highest quality oak I've ever had, and it is really shining through. This is really high quality oak as well, and it's just going to take a lot longer. That's what I expect. So in terms of YouTube, you know, there's no great big dynamic twist in the story, but I don't know. I don't really want to manufacture bullshit to tell you. Anyway, let's get on to these. But first, we need to talk about today's sponsor. You want to have a guess who it is? You want to guess? You want to guess? Bam! It's Into the AM, guys. I mean, is anyone shocked? I gotta say, man, these guys are so freaking easy to work with in terms of sponsorships. And it's kind of weird me telling you that, but it seems like they are so good at what they do. They just do good work. And because of that, they can expect other people to just do good work. I'm beating around the bush here, but what I'm saying is their clothes are amazing. They fit well. They feel amazing. This is one of the oldest ones I've got. This is one of my old favorites, and it still feels awesome, and it is not falling apart. It's covered in sawdust, but it's not falling apart. They have a whole host of amazingly awesome graphic t-shirts. Their plain black t-shirts are pretty damn awesome if you need to be a little bit dressed up or just kind of fly under the radar. And of course, we have the really, really cool collaboration shirt between Into the AM and Chase the Craft, which, if you didn't know it was there, it's pretty damn awesome. The best part is this weekend, just for this weekend, they're having a 25% off store-wide sale. And if you use the special link in the description down below, I'm pretty sure you'll get an extra 10% off. That's 35% off. That is pretty damn good. So, if you want to help support the channel and get yourself some kick-ass shirts, you know what to do. So thank you, Into the AM. I thoroughly appreciate it, and I know a bunch of you guys appreciate their work too, because I keep hearing about it. Anyway, this version here and this one here are exactly the same wash, but fermented with AG2, which is Angel Yeast's more corn-focused, like American whiskey style yeast, I guess you would call it. And the biggest thing that I can notice between the two, well, there's two actually. There's two. One is that it is so much cleaner in terms of the esters, so you don't have this crazy like fruity orchard fruit, almost like creaminess about it, which in some ways sounds bad. And in terms of opinions or what you prefer, it might be. That's fine. And for me, it probably kind of is. But the flip side of that is that when you drink it, the yeast gets the hell out of the way, funnily enough, and it allows the corn and the wood to shine through a whole lot more, which is what bourbon is, right? The crazy thing is that this is the first time I have really gotten that cherry note in a whiskey. I've hunted for it so many times. Like, I've expected it to show up so many times. And funnily enough, I go and use corn, an American whiskey yeast, and American white oak, good American white oak, and hey presto, it just arrives. So I think what I'm seeing here is this case of all of the individual parts don't bring the flavor to the table, they bring the precursor to the table, and those precursors go to work together to create a flavor that none of the individual parts have. And it is here in this one. It's present, but kind of subtle. This one, on the other hand, so much more. And I'm really thankful that it is not the straight up like cough syrup, fake single dimension, like nasty medicine cherry. It's a lot more nuanced than that. It's not as dark and sticky as like maraschino, I don't think, but it's heading that way. And once again, it shows up more in this, which once again makes me have to think that that long high temperature helps to, I guess, enforce, or it gives the chemical reactions a jump start. And especially once you do that jump start and then let it sit for a while, it seems to work better. It seems like these kind of things, they suddenly hit a wall and then they go downhill really freaking quickly. If you kind of imagine over time, I guess it is. Oh man, I can never remember which is actually, if this graph is backwards, I apologize. But if you imagine time this way and just general quality of the whiskey this way, it gives you a huge boost at the beginning. But then it kind of flattens out over time and then tanks really quickly, and it never gets to a really nice point. Whereas doing the slower methods takes a lot longer for it to catch up, but then it has a lot higher potential a lot further down the track, if that makes sense. That's kind of been my experience with this. Anyway, so to sum it up, the AG1 versus the AM1 versus the AG2 is more esters, more Scotch-like, more kind of like interesting fruity fullness in the whiskey. The AG2 is clean in terms of all of that stuff. It lets you get straight to the ingredients being corn and oak. And in my opinion, that cleanness paired with the big chewy cornbreadiness and the oak, I don't know, man. I don't know. Going into this, I was ready to sing the praises of the more Scotch-like esters, but I don't know, there's something kind of nice about that more classic bourbon thing as well. Preference thing, why not both? I guess is the answer. All right, the last thing I want to do, and actually first, because I haven't done it yet, I need to say huge thank you to the Patreons. Thank you, Patreons, for being the people that allow me to do what I do. I thoroughly appreciate it, guys. I really do. If you're interested in joining up for Patreon, you can go to chasethecraft.com/support to find out all the different ways you can do so. And seeing as I know there's people out there that just really dislike Patreon because reasons, I'm not mentioning it here because I don't agree. I kind of do. It's just, what choice do I have? I get it. If you're one of those people, you can use the channel memberships here on YouTube to just basically support the channel directly too, if you prefer. Anyway, let's get on to this one here, which is exactly the same wash, once again, but fermented with a English ale yeast. Two things. One, the biggest difference is the ester profile. Two, I feel like I screwed up the distillation of this and I took too much heads because the angel yeast didn't ferment out as low as all the others. And I tried to take the same volume of cuts for each test to make it, like more standard. So it's a bit more headsy. That was my screw up. it is what it is. Let's move past that. The esters, the change in esters is the biggest. It is much more similar to this. It's more fruity, more traditionally fruity, like juicy fruity. Yeah, that's actually, yeah, kind of close to juicy fruit, but not quite so fake. All right, let me try this one while I'm thinking about that, trying to put a handle on it. Oh, and just to be clear, this is, once again, the English ale yeast, but the 4-stage version of it. You know what it is? It's starting to bring out a slight tartness from the wood into the whiskey. It's still rich and full and like oily and has a lot of body on your tongue, but then you swallow and it all kind of dissipates. And now my mouth's more watering. It's the only time this has happened with all of these whiskeys. It's watering and I want to drink more. The drinkability on it, if you get it just right, skyrockets. Very, very interesting. Starting to get through to that almost nutty, like more dark caramel and fruit thing. I kind of like that. Still errs on the side of headsiness, although, once again, not as bad as this, which is, again, interesting for the 4-stage thing. I'm going to keep all of these. I'm not going to ditch any of them. I'm going to let them sit for a little bit longer, and maybe we check in on this again at perhaps the 6-month period. I don't know. So let me know what you think in terms of when I should check on it next. Anyway, I'm babbling. I had a few whiskeys before this, so I'm a little bit merry. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, do all the YouTubey things, like, subscribe, so on and so forth. And I'll catch you next time, guys. Keep on chasing the craft. See ya.